Revising the water cycle. So today we're going to go over the 3 states that water can exist in naturally on the planet Earth and the names that go along with the changes from one state to another. To remind you first though, I'm going to share with you a great video I found on YouTube.
Somewhere out there, the sun is shining on a little puddle that's just part of something that we call the water cycle. Water from a little puddle turns to gas, evaporation. The gas forms into puffy clouds, condensation. The clouds get heavy and the rain pours down, precipitation, and more puddles on the ground. Oh, the water cycle round and around. Vapor goes up and the rain comes down. Water in the sky, in the ocean, in the ground. It's all in a cycle going round and round.
Songs are a great way to remember some of the things that you've learned, and you can even make up your own song for the water cycle. The first thing that we're going to go over is the states of matter. What states can water exist in naturally on the planet Earth? Well, in the song we saw that water started off as a liquid in a puddle. Now we don't just find water as a liquid in puddles, we find it in lakes, we find it in our drinking glasses and swimming pools and coming out of the sky. This is all liquid water. Now if we cool that down, if we make it much colder, it's going to become a solid. And what do we call water when it's a solid? Well, we call it ice. Now let's put a thermometer on here so we can keep track of what's going on, because it's really the changes in temperature that cause the changes in the states of matter. So here we are below 0 degrees centigrade and our water is a solid, it's ice. If we start to heat things up a bit, then this solid is going to change into a liquid, and this is called melting. Reverse the process and take the temperature back down again, and this process is called freezing. Now water is made up of lots and lots of little bits, little molecules, and it's how they're arranged that determines their states of matter. When there isn't much energy, isn't much heat, they're arranged in nice rigid lines, and that gives us our solid. Increase the amount of energy, increase the heat, and they start to move around a lot more, and that's what gives us liquid. As the temperature continues to rise, more and more of those little molecules get energy, and eventually they'll have enough energy to escape. And when they escape, they become a gas. And we call this gas water vapor. The process of going from a liquid to a gas is called evaporation. Going the other way from water vapor back into liquid water again is called condensation. So solid to a liquid is called melting, and liquid to a gas is called evaporating. Gas back to a liquid again is condensing, and liquid back into a solid again is freezing. Now the liquid can start evaporating into a gas at any temperature, but there is a very special temperature at 100 degrees centigrade when all of the liquid has enough energy to turn into a gas, and this is called its boiling point. Now different liquids have different boiling points, and we saw that in an investigation we did when we changed the water into a saline solution, into salty water. So now let's use these words and put them into our water cycle. We'll start off with some rain. Rain, as we know, comes from the sky and it seems to come out of clouds. And we call this rain precipitation. In fact, precipitation is the word for any water that falls out of the sky. So it includes not just rain, but also sleet and snow and hail. Now imagine like that water is going to run off down hills and down pavements, and it's going to collect in puddles and lakes and oceans. So here's one of my puddles. Now, thanks to the energy from the sun, that puddle is going to start to heat up. It's not going to boil because that's at 100 degrees centigrade. But remember, water doesn't need to boil to change into a gas. In fact, it only needs a very small amount of energy, and all the little molecules on top can start evaporating. Now you can see I'm drawing the little gas bits going upwards, but in reality you can't see water vapour at all. Now the higher it goes, the cooler that water vapour gets, and it starts to get closer and closer together as it loses its energy. And as soon as those little bits start to form together, we see them as clouds. At this stage, it is no longer a gas. It has in fact already changed back into a liquid, but the droplets are so tiny, they're still able to float. So this is condensation. Now, condensation doesn't always happen really high up. Sometimes we can see clouds forming really, really low to the ground, and we call these mist or fog. You can even see it when you breathe out on a cold window, because there's water vapour in your breath. It condenses when it hits the cold glass, turning back into little droplets of liquid again. As these little droplets join together with other little droplets, they become bigger and bigger and denser and denser and heavier and darker, and eventually we get rain clouds, which is large amounts of water that are only just still able to suspend themselves in the air. Finally, the droplets are too big and heavy and they fall back to the ground again. So clouds aren't containers of water. They don't travel around carrying water. Clouds are water, simply droplets that are currently too small to fall back to the earth again. So this is essentially the water cycle. Precipitation comes down, the water gains energy from the sun, it evaporates back up until it condenses again. And really, there's just one more bit you need to be aware of that can add water into the water cycle. Do you remember when I said how that you can breathe on glass and you can see the water vapour in your breath? Well, other living things also release water vapour, and plants especially release a large amount. Plants release water vapour through their leaves. Remember, water vapour is a gas, so you won't be able to see it, but if you find a branch with leaves on it and tie a plastic bag over it, you'll be able to collect that water vapour. And then if the temperature lowers, that water vapour will start to condense and you will see droplets of water inside the bag. This release of water vapour from plants is called transpiration. So, quick recap. Evaporation is when water as a liquid turns into a gas. Transpiration is when water as a gas is released from plants. Both transpiration and evaporation essentially are putting water vapour up into the air. Condensation occurs when that water vapour cools down and becomes little droplets of a liquid again. If those little droplets of water are being suspended in the air in clouds, precipitation will occur when those droplets become too big to stay in the air and will fall to the ground as either rain, sleet, hail or snow. You ready for a quick test? What is it called when liquid water turns into water vapour? What is it called when that vapour forms into clouds? What is it called when that clouds release their water back down to earth again. What is it called when plants release water vapour into the air? Can water evaporate at any temperature? Does water need to boil to evaporate? If liquid water becomes very cold, what does it turn into? What is the process called when solid water turns back into liquid water again? What do we call water that flows above the ground in rivers and streams? What do we call water that sinks down underground? If you know the answers to all these questions, you should do really well in the exam. Make sure you go over the equipment we use during the water cycle, like the Bunsen burner and the tripod, and how to use them safely. Come and see me if you've got any questions, and best of luck with your revision.